It is college basketball season, and I would argue that there are few programs in the nation that are more intriguing to follow this season than the Syracuse men's basketball team. And to help us get a snapshot of where this program is heading into the 23-24 season, we welcome on a first-time guest here on The Drive with Charlie and Dan. He is Mike Waters from Syracuse.com and the Post-Standard. Mr. Waters, good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Dan, I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on.
The pleasure is ours. I'm sorry Charlie wasn't here in order to jump in on this one, but the pleasure is ours to have you on nonetheless. And I'm very intrigued by where this team is right now with all of the change that we've seen and how many times that Syracuse has been in headlines, good, bad, or otherwise. Your early impressions, not on the team, but on the coach and what you've seen from Adrian Autry that makes you go, wow, this is a little bit different heading into this year.
Well, there's a lot different between Adrian Autry and Jim Boeheim.
Yeah, fair.
First of all, we're talking, Jim Boeheim was 47 years as the head coach. I mean, Syracuse is in uncharted territory here. A new head coach for the first time in nearly 50 years.
Amazing.
Probably, most of your listeners, or at least a good chunk of them, weren't even alive when Jim Boeheim took over as head coach. So this is different.
Yeah.
Obviously, Adrian Autry has already come in and he said he wants to play more man-to-man. Now, he hasn't totally gotten rid of the zone. In fact, in the opener against New Hampshire the other night on Monday, they had to go to the 2-3 zone for long stretches of time because of both matchup problems and also some foul trouble.
Sure.
So the zone is still there. It's in the backpack. They can use it, get it out. But he wants to play man-to-man. I think he wants to play a more aggressive style. He wants to get up and down the floor more if they can. But really, we're just kind of watching him and seeing how he's just doing things. Running practices, dealing with players during games, shuttling players in and out, and just kind of learning exactly, what an Adrian Autry program is going to look like.
I'm genuinely curious as well for the readers in your area and those who you interact with covering this team. Was the reaction to Adrian Autry being brought in and the change in the coaching staff or change at the coaching position, was it welcomed at the time that it happened? Oh,
I think so. I think most of the fan base, first of all, they remember Adrian from his playing days in the early 90s. He was a 4-year starter here. One of the first players, I think, ever to lead Syracuse in assists for 4 consecutive years.
Wow.
And he's been on Jim Boeheim's staff since 2011. He'd returned to his alma mater after, a pro career overseas and then getting into coaching. He got into coaching at the grassroots level. He coached AAU ball in the Washington, D.C. area. He coached at 2 different high schools down there. He worked his way up, and then he got a job as a video operations guy, a director of basketball operations at Virginia Tech under Seth Greenberg, who's now at ESPN. So, so he's a familiar face who also has an interesting resume. I think people appreciate, the grind and how he did work his way up through the system. And I think also a lot of folks are appreciating the fact that, it's the program probably needed a little bit of change here.
Yeah,
obviously in the last 5, 6, 7 years, it's been a little bit of a decline. And some people would argue, no, it's been more than a little bit of a decline. It's been a tough road.
Yeah.
It didn't go to the NCAA tournament each of the last 2 years. It's been a struggle to finish above 6th place in the ACC. Is Adrian the right guy? I don't know. We'll find out. But here we are, and it's just a dawn of a new era in the history of Syracuse basketball, and I think that's exciting.
Yeah, it's extremely exciting, and it's also a compliment to what has been built in Syracuse over the last half century. That a couple years worth of even average play on the court is not good enough, and so
it says something, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It really puts it in perspective. I mean, what Jim Boeheim did at Syracuse is truly remarkable.
Right.
Over a 47-year career. I mean, it's amazing. And, I dare say, guys like him and Mike Krzyzewski, I don't know if we'll see the likes of those guys ever again.
No, I think that's a great point. I mean, just the sheer turnover that you see in the coaching profession at the collegiate level, especially the professional level as well. It's just the knee-jerk reactions to make changes. You're probably right. So we'll see. Hey, maybe we could be having this conversation in another 47 years with Adrian Autry. Who knows? But there's I would tend to side with you on that one as well. Let's take a look quickly at the group that he is working with this year. From what it looks like, a small freshman class incoming, but a huge sophomore class as well. So still some younger players in terms of total experience in the NCAA. What do you make of the makeup of this year's group of Orange players?
Well, it is funny. They have a lot of guys who were on the roster last year, but overall it still looks like a very young team. You mentioned the 6 sophomores. They were all part of that huge recruiting class that Syracuse had 2 years ago. Now, some of them got a lot of experience last year.
Sure.
Judah Mintz and Chris Bell were both full-time starters as freshmen. Justin Taylor, another wing forward, got a significant amount of playing time, as did Malik Brown. So they have some experience, but overall still kind of young. They have no scholarship seniors on this squad.
Wow.
So, last year's team was young because you had all these kids were freshmen.
Yeah.
But at least you had Joe Girard and Jesse Edwards, who had both been around for 4 years and played and started and, to provide leadership. With no seniors on this team and really only 2 scholarship juniors, and one is new to the program, Naheem McLeod, a big center that transferred to Syracuse from Florida State, and then Benny Williams, a starter at forward last year as a sophomore. He's a junior now, but he's currently suspended for a violation of team rules. He hasn't played in either of the team's 2 games so far this season, and we'll see when he gets reinstated. I mean, there's hopes that he'll get back to the team soon because they got a schedule coming up here it's going to be brutal over the next 3 or 4 weeks for the Orange, and they could definitely use Benny.
Yes, very, very much the case. We'll get into that in a moment. The voice you're hearing is that of Mike Waters. He covers Syracuse men's basketball and college basketball for Syracuse.com and the Post-Standard. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at Mike Waters, SYR, Syr, if you will, for up-to-the-minute coverage of this group this year and beyond. The player you brought up there in Naheem McLeod, it's funny, we here in New York just saw Victor Wembanyama for the first time at 7'4" on the court at Madison Square Garden. 7'4" is no joke. That's a player that can make an impact no matter what. But what have you seen from him joining this program and a player of that size? I mean, I can imagine he's easy to spot, if nothing else.
Naheem does stand out, even in a team photo with a bunch of other tall guys.
Yeah.
He is huge.
Right.
He's the tallest player in Syracuse basketball history by a good 2 inches over the previous tallest guy was Pascal Chukwu,
right,
who was here at Syracuse about 3-4 years ago. But the difference with Naheem and Pascal is Pascal was kind of tall and skinny.
Sure.
Naheem is solidly built.
Right.
He weighs 265 pounds.
Wow.
He is
Holy
a big
cow.
dude.
Wow.
And I actually, Judah Mintz, the sophomore guard, referred to him as exactly that in the post-game locker room the other night. He goes, it really helps when you have a big dude back there. And, he's athletic as a Victor Wembanyama. He doesn't move like that. He can't shoot like Victor does. He's not tight. Victor is probably a once-in-a-generation type talent.
Oh, no doubt, yeah.
Looking like. Naheem's big. He's going to help. But he also is limited for a couple reasons. He's so big that he struggles to, move away from the basket, get out of the paint, and defend on the perimeter. And so far this season, they've run into a bunch of teams that they're either small, and their centers are 6'8",
okay,
and they move away from the basket, and that's tough on Naheem. So they'll sit him down and they'll go with the perimeter and guard teams like that. And the other thing too is at 7'4", 265, he can't play as many minutes as Judah Mintz at guard or J.J. Starling, a 6'3", 6'4" guard.
Sure.
Those guys can go 35, 40 minutes a game if need be. Naheem. That on a good night where everything's going well for him and he's got good matchups and everything else, listen, 25 minutes is going to be a lot for a big guy like that.
Right.
You got to give him chances to get a rest and everything, but he's going to help. He's going to defend the rim. He's going to block shots that you don't think can be blocked, and then all of a sudden He's doing it out of nowhere, just because he's just so huge. And it's like I've seen players already in some of the exhibitions and the 2 regular season games. They'll get by their man and go towards the basket and then decide otherwise about going all the way. They'll either loft a floater up or kind of veer off and maybe go back out a little bit.
Yeah.
He changes the game. And beyond that, too, he's a bright kid. He's really great to talk to. He's got a great sense of humor and a big, booming bass voice. He sounds like James Earl Jones. Or Barry White.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy he could definitely hold down a portion of a barbershop quartet, man.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He's just a good kid. I like him. I've had a chance to interview him and do some fun stuff with him so far. And yeah, he's a really interesting kid and good kid.
That is outstanding. The descriptor of the barbershop quartet is the perfect way to put that. And I can't say I've heard that used to describe a college athlete before, but I love it, and I hope I hear it again. But you alluded to it, how after wins to open non-conference play against New Hampshire and against Canisius, the next, say, 3 weeks to a month, you'll really be able to learn a lot about this group and a lot about these younger players. First of all, I have to ask, are you going to be on a plane out to the Maui Invitational coming up?
That would be nice. However, my colleague, who also covers the team with me, Donna DeToda, she's going to cover those games. She will be out there. So we will be out there covering the team in person. I got to cover the Battle for Atlantis in the Bahamas 2 years ago.
Oh, okay. All right.
So when I drew, the lucky straw that time around, we all knew that the next big trip was Donna's turn.
Okay.
She's fantastic.
Yep.
So, she'll be covering the tournament out there, providing great coverage. I'll be manning the fort back here at home.
Okay, fair enough. That's disappointing, but I understand the equity there. But
but it's okay because I get to go to South Dakota in
yes!
December,
yes!
which they say is really the Maui of the Midwest.
I've heard you want to pack like the floral button down shirts that you can bring to Hawaii. You want to have those with you in South Dakota. That's what I've heard.
Yeah, especially in mid-December.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. Yeah, maybe you can find a parka that has that same print on it or something like that just to really be festive. But I do want to ask about the next couple of weeks because there are a lot of highlights, not even in just that the upcoming tournament in which this group will play, but as they kind of move through the month of November, what are some of the dates that you're keeping an eye on this calendar that will really show a lot about this group?
Basically everything between now and Christmas.
Wow.
It's a tough stretch. Adrian Autry kind of alluded to it back in the preseason media day when someone asked him about the schedule and his philosophy towards scheduling, and he looked at the reporter and said, "I didn't make this schedule. This is not the schedule a first-year coach would make up for himself."
Right.
I mean, they're going to play Colgate next week. Now, most times you would say Colgate, no big deal, right? But Colgate has beaten Syracuse 2 years in a row.
Right.
They've got the preseason player of the year in the Patriot League, Keegan Records. They got a couple other kids that are really, really good and who have been on teams that went to the NCAA tournament in 4 of the last 5 years.
Wow.
So it's a scary team to be playing in just your third game of the year. And
right.
I'm telling you, Colgate is going to be a tough one. But then you go out to Hawaii, and you're going to get a nationally ranked Tennessee team in the first round. Win or lose, your game in the second round, if you're Syracuse, is going to be either Purdue or Gonzaga.
Oh, good. That's good.
Yeah. So, Purdue's only in the top 10, and Gonzaga's Purdue's probably top 5, and Gonzaga's in the top 20.
Right.
So your first 2 games in Hawaii are against nationally ranked teams, and I don't know if Syracuse is really ready for that yet.
Yeah.
When they come home from Hawaii, they get to play LSU here in Syracuse.
Oh.
So at least it's in Syracuse.
Right.
But that's still a pretty good LSU team. Then they get to go down to Virginia for an early ACC game, and this always hurts Syracuse. the ACC, since it went to 20 conference games every year, they have to play one game in early December.
Right.
That early December Saturday coincides with the state football finals at the Carrier Dome. Well, sorry, JMA Wireless Dome every year.
Right.
So with their home arena not available, Syracuse always has to play a December ACC game on the road.
Wow.
And this year it's Virginia, which is, predicted to come in like third or fourth in the league. And then, shortly after that, you got another road trip to Georgetown.
Yep.
And then the game against Oregon that I mentioned that's being played in South Dakota. So, Oregon on a neutral floor, at Georgetown, at Virginia, a couple of brutal games in Hawaii, and a home game against LSU, all before Christmas. My advice to Syracuse fans is, do not panic. Whatever happens, don't panic.
Right.
It is up to Adrian Autry to get this team to about Christmas or New Year's and make sure their heads are still on straight and see where this team goes from there. Do they improve? I think in the ACC they stack up well against a lot of teams. I think they can do okay in the ACC. Now, will it be enough to get an NCAA tournament bid? I don't know. Some of that will depend on whether they can pick up one or two wins against these really, really good teams here over the next month. We'll see.
Okay, yes. So the best advice that we can take from this one, stay calm, keep calm, carry on, and follow our guy Mike Waters for up-to-the-minute coverage on this Syracuse team. Again, you can follow him on Twitter at Mike Waters, Syr, S-Y-R, and you got to read his work at Syracuse.com. Mike, a pleasure to catch up with you here on The Drive. It was great to have you on. Hopefully we can do this again real soon, but good luck on this stretch of games because I can imagine it's going to be interesting no matter what.
It's always interesting in basketball season in Syracuse. But, yeah, I think it'll be a fun year. Thanks for having me on. This was great.